Up next on Inside the SCCA, recovering from a big one. Welcome to this episode of Inside the SCCA. I'm Brian Bielanski, and today is an episode that we've been trying to do for a couple of weeks now, actually a couple of months, and I'm really happy to have this young driver on the show with me, especially considering the the big wreck he went through back in June. And Henry Tabor is with us. How you doing, Henry?
I'm doing all right. I'm making it through.
Making it through. So, if you're watching the podcast live, or watching the podcast not live, you'll notice that Henry wearing a neck brace, and I'm sure that is the. We're going to get into all of that in just a little bit about why and how and all of the stuff that you've been through here. But let's start from the beginning. Everybody who knows the show knows how we started. And Henry, the question we always ask is, how did you get mixed up in this crazy sport that we all love?
Well, it's a family thing for us. I'm a third generation racer. It started with my grandfather, and stage rally. So I come from a host of stage rally drivers. It's my grandparents, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, and my sister and myself. We've all competed in stage rally, doing it for about 25 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a family thing for us. So I was the defector. I decided that I wanted to try road racing. Back in 2021, I got my hands into a Spec racer, and the rest is history. So yeah, it's quite cool to be a part of such a long lineage.
So what's your first memory of being either at a racetrack or working on the car with someone in the family in the garage? What's your first memories?
So I think it goes back to 2012 at the Oregon Trail Rally, which takes place in Goldendale, Washington, due for Oregon, and starts at PIR, Portland. And it was Sunday morning. I was with my mom in our park expose before the event, before the third leg starts, and I met Ken Block for the first time.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's something that I cherish for a very long time. That's something that I look back on quite frequently, especially after what happened this year. I'm so thankful and lucky to be in the rally community and to be with and to compete with the Block family, and really getting to know them over the years. It's something that I cherish, and that's one of the things that I love most about rally, and the most I love racing is just that family. They've done a lot for us, and it's just incredible.
So do you know Ken's daughter who's racing now?
Yes, I do. I actually, that same day, we were both really young, I think 6 or 7, I think. And so the Doofer, Oregon is where we service on Sundays of the Oregon Trail Rally, and the service park takes place in a literal city park.
Mm-hmm.
So in the middle of it is a playground, and I don't know how, but I got my dad to let me go over and play on the playground. Ken and Leah were there playing, and so that's kind of one of the things that I find really cool is, I got to play with Leah Block on the playground. So that was cool, and it's been really fun watching them grow and compete, and they're just such a great family.
Yeah, no question. What so how did you get into the road racing side of things? Because I mean, anybody in the family involved in that, or did you just, because you're part of the club, you saw what was going on and said, hey, I want to try that?
So it goes back quite a long ways. So my dad, Mark, knows or knew the Oregon Region Road Race Director, Kristen Moore, from when he was the rally director back when SCCA was in stage rally. So they had known each other for a very long time, along with Todd Harris. He's known them for 20 plus years. So when I turned 15, I was like, I want to go racing and I want to go road racing. He said, all right, let's go to Pro Drive. So that's kind of how that all started. I don't I don't really know why I wanted to do road racing. I think I just really wanted to get my hands on the first thing that I could,
Sure.
which was a road car. And so I've been working with Pro Drive and flat out racing for the past 3 years, and it's been an incredible experience working with all of them. But yeah, I just wanted to get my hands on something as soon as I could.
So do the rules let you road race younger than stage rally?
Yes. So
Okay.
as far as I know, you can start SCCA at 15,
Right.
and I think you have to have your driver's license. So 16, 17 to be road racing or rally.
Road rally. Because sometimes road rally goes on a regular road.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense then. Cool. So you went with an arrive and drive team, right?
Yes.
As I always tell people, and you have a racing background, a family background in racing, so I would have given you a bit of a reprieve had you gone out and bought yourself a car and did it all yourself, because you had some history in the family. But I'm always asked by parents of people who are trying to get involved in this sport, whether it be kart racers coming up or whether someone just shows up at the racetrack and finds that it's fun. How do I get my kid involved with this? And my first thing I always tell them is rent a car first. Don't go out and spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on the car and the tow vehicle and the trailer and all that kind of stuff, because you just might find out your kid hates it or really isn't good at it. And then you've got all this investment in stuff that is almost never worth as much when you resell it as it is when you first bought it. So, so even with the knowledge that the family had, and maybe that is why the family decided to go with an arrive and drive program first. What was the decision-making process there?
So originally we had bought a Ford Fiesta that was like halfway to becoming a B spec car.
Okay.
But at the last second, I changed my mind and said I want to try a spec racer. So now that Ford Fiesta has been repurposed into a bit of a rallycross car.
Okay.
And the reason we went with spec racer and being a part of their team, the Pro Drive team, is because we honestly don't know a lot about road racing and how a lot of it works. We're rally racers at heart.
Right.
So we didn't really know a lot about, and we didn't know, logistics. So we kind of figured it would just be easier. This is a great team. They'll take care of us. It just makes it easier on us just to work with them.
So even with the family background, you were smart enough to know, I don't know a lot about road racing, so let's do this with a team that does to get started.
Yes, that was pretty much our thought process.
So you're starting your senior year in high school, which makes you what, 17 now or 18?
Yes, I'm 17. I turned 18 in just over a month.
Okay. So you were 15 when you started. So this was your third season, right?
Yes.
Okay. And how was that startup as a 15-year-old, getting into road racing? What was that first? Did you go through an SCCA school? What was your progression?
So, regardless of what we did, whether it be spec or spec racer, we went through the Pro Drive school.
Got it.
Their licensing school, and then I did the March date at Portland International tagged along with it. So I did the school, and then I did my first race in a Gen 2 car. Pretty soon after that, I was kind of asked to go try a Gen 3. I was a little hesitant. I didn't feel like I was ready, but then again, I said, let's do it because of course I would.
Right.
So tried a Gen 3 and we ran the same Gen 3 car through the rest of 2021, through 2022, up through 2023 until June.
And that first weekend, that first race, what was that like for you?
It was really fun. I don't remember a lot about it, but I do remember arriving in the paddock for the first time and seeing the car with my name on it, and that was just the coolest thing for me, is to finally have my name on a race car. And that's just kind of when it hit me, is that this is what I really want to do. This is what I want to make a career out of.
Yeah, there's nothing not cool about having your name on this. I mean, I just got back from Solo Nationals, and I was actually really surprised that most of the solo people don't put their name on a car. I'm like, I got my name on a car because damn it, I'm proud I got here. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the coolest things, and it still is the coolest thing, having your name on a race car, no matter what car it is, rally car, a road car. It's a cool thing. Just never gets old.
Yeah, no question at all. All right, so you get through that first season. Did you just predominantly do Portland stuff, or maybe Thunder Hill that first season?
We only did Portland. We did a lot of track days, a lot of test days, just getting as much seat time as I could with the car, just to help progress my learning and my abilities in the car, which definitely really helped. And I'm really glad that we did that. I think just all of that track time was super crucial to how fast I think I progressed.
Sure.
And it really helped going into 2022, kind of having a better idea when it came to that first race.
Right. So what did your 2022 season look like?
So when we planned it out, we were like, we just want to do Portland, maybe the Ridge. And I think our big event of that year was going to Laguna Seca. So we did all of the Portland dates. We did the event out at the Ridge Motorsports Park, and then we did Laguna Seca in July. And I have to say, that is one of the coolest racetracks ever.
Yeah.
That is just such a beautiful place.
I've been to Laguna. I've done it on iRacing. Tell me about the corkscrew.
It was weird. The first few times going through it, that morning practice session, it just felt super weird, but you're just so focused on making the corners that you almost don't notice how violent it is until you kind of get into a rhythm. And then at some point you just feel it, and you just feel the entire car bottom out. And it's like, oh, that's what that feels like. Okay.
Yeah.
It lives up to its name.
I guess until you do it right, it doesn't feel like the corkscrew, right?
Right.
Yeah. So what did 2023 season look like?
So going into 23, we were like, we want to do the Portland dates. We want to do those again. I wanted to do Thunder Hill a lot. So we did the Super Tour at Thunder Hill in May. We planned on Road America was going to be our big event. It was going to be our vacation, I guess you could say. And then I really wanted to do Laguna Seca again. I just felt so comfortable at Laguna and just really wanted to go back. But I was really excited for Road America, the furthest I've traveled for any racing. So it was really exciting. And it was weird with the repave. It was definitely something that I don't think anybody really expected. It was really interesting.
So Road America is my home track growing up, site of my first driver school. And I have many weekends there as a crew member for my dad, and a special place in my heart. I grew up about 2 hours from Road America, so I absolutely understand why that was your bucket list for this year to get to. So I guess this is probably the right time to kind of transition to one of the reasons why you're here. I want to state that I didn't bring Henry on just to talk about a huge wreck. I really do love having young drivers on and talk about their journey to get to road racing, and I would have had you on regardless of the wreck. So I will put it out there. I just don't want it to be morose, but you're here. And you're wearing a neck brace, and we had a couple of pretty big wrecks at Road America, and you were unfortunately in one of them, you were thankfully the only one that was hurt. I guess that's a weird thing to say, other than the bumps and bruises. But you took a pretty big shunt there, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a pretty big one. Started going into the kink. The car in front of me was spinning by the time it hit the apex. my realistically, my only two options were to go straight and try and avoid him, or go off and try and avoid him. And, my split-second decision was just try and go off, hit the grass, straighten it out to get around him, because I didn't know where the car was going. But as soon as I hit the grass, the car did, just a 180 on me. And so I went into the safer barrier at about 115, give or take. Rode along the safer barrier for, however many yards. And then eventually the wheels caught and it shot me back across the track. And I was basically stationary in the middle of the track. And then that's when I stopped. That's when I go cold.
When you don't remember what from that point on.
Yeah, that's when it just all went dark.
Right.
From what I learned from, video, is a car hit me, broadsided me like this.
Right.
And the rest was history, pretty much.
Yeah.
I had no control over the car. My pedal box, after the initial hit, we think got destroyed. I can remember pretty vividly that I could feel the brake pedal, all the pedals just kind of moved after the initial impact. And by the time that I kind of realized what was going on, it was over. There wasn't much I could really do at that point.
Yeah. So obviously you're wearing a neck brace. What were the extent of your injuries? Because I know they sent you to, I'm guessing, the local hospital first in Sheboygan, and then you went to Freighter in Milwaukee, right?
Yeah, so we went to the Wisconsin's Children, the Children's Hospital. They initially thought that I had they initially diagnosed me with third-degree burns from my coolant tank exploding behind me because one of the lines got pinched off.
Okay.
So the coolant tank exploded all over me in my back of my right arm. And they initially thought that I may have had a brain bleed and some sort of concussion and a C1 fracture, my C1 vertebrae. It turns out I have a basal skull fracture, which isn't any better than a C1 fracture. No brain bleed, no concussion, thankfully.
Great.
So it was really only those two. Those were the two major things, and then just the bumps and bruises. I had some pretty good ones all over.
So no leg injuries with the footbox?
No.
Wow.
No, which is really lucky. And after looking through the car, looking at the seat, it is a miracle, and I don't think anybody quite understands how I don't have a broken pelvis.
Okay.
Because of how the seat cracked and broke. There are many tears in the tub. Some of the body bars, some of the pieces under the bodywork were inches from where my helmet would have been.
Mm-hmm.
My headrest bent. It folded basically. It was lucky that I didn't have a broken jaw.
Show us the helmet, because you.
So this is the helmet that I was wearing, fully carbon fiber, and I don't know how easy it is to see, but that there is a crack.
Yep, I can see it.
And then up here, there's a fainter one.
Okay.
So this is on the side that I got hit on.
Okay.
The side. This is where the headrest folded, basically.
Got it. Okay.
So this did its job very well. This kept my jaw intact, because that was one of my main worries. Was that I had a broken jaw because of how much it hurt.
Yeah.
I didn't, which was very lucky. But this did its job. And if there's one thing that I can teach, or I can tell any new driver or new racer or new family getting into racing, if you can't afford the top-notch safety gear, you have to wait. If I was wearing anything else, I don't believe that I would have gotten away with no head injury,
sure,
other than the skull fracture,
right,
or the basal skull. If I was wearing something that wasn't this, I'm 100% convinced that I would not have been in as good, in quotations, shape as I was.
Right.
It would have been a lot worse. So I think Stilo, for making such a great helmet, this saved my life, and I'm, that it's incredible to be holding it and that it survived. Well, it didn't survive, but it's still here.
So now you need to send a copy of a link to this podcast to Stilo,
Yes.
And then maybe they'll send you a new helmet.
we were actually really lucky. We bought a completely new kit already, including a new helmet. We got it on sale from a website. Full new Sparco kit, brand new helmet. So the worst part about the helmet was that this was basically brand new. This had like 3 events on it.
Right.
Because my old helmet got too small. So this was basically a brand new helmet.
Uh-huh.
And yeah.
So since the wreck, you've bought a new kit.
Yes, we have full new racing suit, boots, gloves, helmet. I'm gonna have to get a new Hans device because the Hans also broke. We think that it's fractured. So very expensive, and that's not even counting the car.
So when you get done, I'm going off on a tangent now. When you get done with high school, what are you going to go to college for, or what are you going to do? You plan to go to college?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not very academically inclined. I'm definitely not, a grade A student.
Sure.
I've debated doing trade and doing automotive trade.
Okay.
In all honesty, I was hoping that 2023 would have been a good year for me to kind of keep building my racing resume.
Right.
To hop into 2024 and start running more national events, start kind of getting out there and hopefully try and have something lined up. But obviously this has kind of stopped that plan. So we're getting over this obstacle and we're kind of just going from the rebuild.
Right. So the reason I asked that question was because I was going to suggest maybe you should be a television producer, because you basically wrote the next question for me by saying you went out and you've bought a whole new kit. I wasn't going to quite get to this yet, but I'll ask the question now, and then we'll dig deeper into it in a bit. If you bought a new kit, that gives me the impression you're going to go racing again.
I'm 90% sure I am.
Okay.
I really think I want to. I think that I've got too much left in me to just kind of quit now.
Yeah.
There are a lot of athletes, a lot of racers who have been through incidents and come back stronger. And I'm not done with racing. Like I said, it's a family thing. I want to keep doing it because I think that I have more that I can prove, and I still want to make a career out of this. And I know that you probably hear that from every young racer that you meet, but I'm working really hard to try and make this a reality. And despite this is, in the grand scheme of things, just a setback, and I want to be back on the track no matter what it is. I could be racing a lawnmower for all I care. I want to be back on a track. I really want to drive more cars. I want to compete at a national level. I really want to get to a level that this can be a job. This is something that I can live from, and that's kind of my goal. That's been my goal since 2021. After my first race weekend, I kind of sat down with myself and said, look, this is going to be a reality no matter what happens. And racing is not fair. It never is. It never has been, and it never will. It will not treat you well. Racing will beat you up. It will make you work hard. It will set you back. And that's something that I've been able to understand a lot more since Road America is, if you want something, if you want to make this a career, you have to work for it, and you have to look at every setback and put it aside and keep working, because at some point something's bound to happen if you work hard enough. And that's just kind of what I've been telling myself. It's definitely been a really difficult recovery period, just both emotionally, mentally, and physically. I've lost a lot of physical strength. I'm not where I want to be physically, but also mentally and emotionally. It's been really tough. It's been really hard to find the courage to come back and to publicly speak about the crash, just because of how big it was and how traumatic it was for me, and for everybody else involved. And I'm super glad and I'm super happy that I was the only one injured, because I don't want anybody else to get injured in racing.
Sure.
It's bound to happen, and it will happen, but if we can keep injuries to a minimum, and I'm the only one that gets injured, that's fine. Everybody deserves to be safe, and everybody should be able to race, and not be impacted like I am. So I'm glad that I was the only one that was injured in that crash, and I'm glad that everybody else is still racing. And I want to rejoin the field, and I'm really waiting for this neck brace to come off, and I'm really waiting for the all clear. It's just been really tough, and I'm just biding my time, waiting for the all clear, and as soon as I can, I'm going to start working towards my goals again.
So that is a tremendous amount of maturity out of a 17-year-old, listening to you talk about the whole process and your desire to still not completely 100% there on a decision, but it feels like you're pointing in that direction. I will tell you that in the 3+ decades that I've been doing this, no one who's ever gotten into a race car and been in a wreck would fault you if you chose to not come back, and no one questions the desire to come back if that's the decision you would make. There's something weird about how we're programmed, how our brains work, that once you get into this, it is a legal addiction.
Yeah.
And it is something that people just don't understand. I've seen people have come up to me and asked after they've seen someone else's wreck. I don't know if you saw the Ryan Preece wreck a couple of weeks ago at Daytona. I'm sitting at work. I work in a radio newsroom, and everybody knows I'm a car guy and I do all this. So they come up to me afterwards and they say to me, "How does someone get back in a car after that?" And I'm like, I can't answer that question. We just do. And at the same time, if you choose at some point to say, no, I'm done, that's cool too. At least you're around to make that decision, which is, I'm sure your family is grateful for.
Yes.
So you said you were wearing a Hans device.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that Hans device is made to do is to prevent basal skull fractures. I'm guessing that because you had it on, it probably made the basal skull fracture less severe.
No.
Okay.
I think what it did was save my life. I think that I have a stage 3 basal skull. So
Okay.
A stage 3 stable basal skull fracture, which is basically the worst type. That's one step away from, lack of better words, internal decapitation.
Sure.
So, but if I wasn't wearing a Hans device, I do believe that it would have been that extra step. And I think that it did 100% save my life.
Right.
I think all of the safety gear that I was wearing did its job. It was sacrificed. I can't use any of it anymore.
Sure.
It was either cut off or fractured or broken or, whatever the case may be. But that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to take all the pressure and take the hits so that the person wearing it is okay.
Well, and your biggest shunt was essentially almost like a T-bone or a side swipe, right?
Yeah.
So the Hans device and all of the head and neck devices are really designed to prevent your head from going forward in a front collision. It's not really, to the best of my knowledge, and I'm not a safety engineer, so, but the way I understand it's really not meant for that side impact. The Spec Racer Fords don't have a neck enclosure, right?
They do.
Okay.
We have a Butler kind of halo thing.
How much back and forth can your head do in the car when you're in there? Side to side? None. Okay. That probably also helped.
There's very little room between the helmet and the sides of the headrest.
Okay.
Like there's enough that I can lean my head against it.
Okay.
Through a corner and it's comfortable and it's fine.
Okay.
So there is really no play there, and one of the things that I found really astonishing was how the headrest bent. It folded. On the left side, it was damaged.
Right.
which that was one of the things that I found really, really incredible, was how that just shows how much force was in the impact. And
Sure.
I don't know exactly, the G forces,
Right.
I could try and calculate it out, but I'm not, I don't think we'll ever be sure um, what's correct or not. But from being basically stationary to getting hit at 65 miles an hour like this, you can do your own assumptions from there.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it was pretty significant. So, um, so I'm guessing the car is a total write-off.
Yes, it's we looked at it. I looked it over with Flat Out Racing. Um, it's the damage is all the way to the driver compartment, which is, so there's about 2 feet worth of body and bars on either side of the driver.
Right.
And on the left side, it's all the way to the wall.
Yeah.
So that's one of the other things that I found so incredible of the crash, is some of the deformedness of some of the bars, how some of the, how the floor is completely pinched, how, just how the damage played out. That's one of the things that I found super incredible about the crash, is just how bad it is, how bad the impact is, or the damage is.
Right. So I'm you're also not a structural engineer, but the guys who do work on the cars, do you think that kind of crushing of this and that was kind of designed into the car so that the car would bend and you would as little as possible?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's what it's meant to do, and I'm glad that it did that. I'm more just, it's just incredible to look at how much damage there was and how it all played out. Just looking at it, just going back through it, it is incredible just seeing how everything deformed, and ultimately how everything played out. That's why I'm still here.
Right.
So regardless of what failed, what didn't, something had to work, because I'm still here.
Right. So everybody processes stuff like this differently. I think that there are probably some people who would choose to not go back and look at the car afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing there are people that would choose to not go back and look at the video afterwards. You've chosen to do both. How is that part of your process to get yourself to help you decide whether or not you want to go back and do this again?
I think it helps me to go back through the video and to look at the car, because I don't remember the crash.
Right.
There's a pretty solid point that through all the video that I can pinpoint, this is when I have no recollection after this point. So it helps me kind of piece together how the crash played out and what happened. It helps my family to know what happened, period, because they were on the other side of the track. They were in turn 5. So it helps me to learn what happened, because I look at it as an outsider.
Right.
I don't know that it's me until you see the number, you see the name on the side.
Right.
As terms of looking at the car, I found all of that really interesting. Going through it, looking at it, and despite the damage, a lot of the car is savable. Like the engine and the transmission, which are the two main, the biggest parts of that car, are savable, which is good because it is a SADEF transmission.
Right.
So it's been tested. It's good to go. So, which is really good. That's one of the things that influence our decision, because there is a big part of it about the budget, the money. Obviously, this wasn't our car, so there's kind of that, usually it's a you break it, you buy it situation. We're lucky enough that we found another car local. We've purchased it. So a lot of the parts off of the car that I was driving are going into that car, which has helped our costs down significantly.
Sure.
So even if I was going back racing or not, we'd still have to replace the car.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
and that's the harsh reality of motorsports.
Yeah.
whether it's if you owned the car and you weren't going to race again, you could just write it off and sell the parts that you could salvage and be done. But when you're working on an arrive and drive type program where you're basically renting the car, most places have is there a fixed dollar figure that you have to pay if you write the thing off? Or do they give you $1 before you go in?
I don't exactly know with ProDrive, but it's usually, from what I can understand, it would usually be whatever isn't savable off the car.
Yeah. And
whatever has to be replaced is what you pay.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're able to work through that budget problem. You know, that's something that's important if you want to go back racing again. So, that helps a lot. So let's take me back to accidents done. The other thing I think it's important to remind yourself is this: you didn't make a mistake to cause the accident. You know, you were caught up in someone else's junk. And that kind of, in my mind, if it were me, that would make me feel a little bit better getting back into the race car. You know, if all of this had happened because I had done something wrong, that would make me question myself a whole lot more. I'd probably still get back in the car and do it, but that should help you process it a little easier, right?
Yeah, it's definitely been good to know. I've gotten the blessing from many people involved in the crash, including the driver, that he didn't really start the crash. It was just unfortunate circumstances. He had damage. So going into the kink, his right rear was towed out.
Got it.
And so as soon as, it was over before he got to the corner.
Right. But it's always better when either the car breaks, and that really isn't your fault, or sometimes we just make a mistake. We lose the car for no good reason, and that would be, in my mind, if it were me, a little harder to process than the car broke or I got caught up in someone else's stuff. So maybe that's just the way my brain works.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I don't place blame on the driver who was the first car that started the crash. I don't place blame on anybody in the crash, because the kink at Road America is just such a unique corner.
Yeah.
It's a fast corner and it's a blind corner.
Yep.
And with the repave, the entire track was just so much faster.
Yeah.
That even the most experienced drivers that I had talked to had to unlearn and relearn what they would do, what they had to do around the course. So there isn't anybody that I put blame on for the crash. I think that that's just a racing. It's just racing. Sometimes it's just a really bad racing incident. Things happen, things break, things go wrong. There's not much that you can do about it. You can't just stop your car on the side of the track and go out and do a check. Check it out, make sure everything's good.
Yeah.
So I don't blame anybody. I don't have a grudge against anybody. Sure. Which I think has made part of the healing process really good, because I don't have anybody that I'm having it out for or whatever.
Sure.
It's just been a long process, and I think that that's both good and bad. I think it's good because you can't pinpoint anybody who started it. You can't point a finger, but at the same time, it's like, it really sucks because there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. So let's go back. The accident happens at some point in time. You don't remember the actual crash.
Mm-hmm.
What is your first recollection afterwards?
So I had a few, I think, dreams, nightmares, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Before I actually woke up or started remembering.
Okay.
I thought that I was at the end of the straightaway and I was in Canada Corner. And I was just getting stared at by safety workers. Everybody was just, eyes wide open, just staring at me. Which we can confirm didn't happen because we didn't make it that far
right
down the course. I woke up, and when I started actually in the real world again, I woke up, I was in the back of an ambulance.
Okay.
I was getting administered fentanyl. And the first thing I thought of was, fentanyl is dangerous. Why am I having fentanyl? That was the first thing, and I didn't say it out loud, but I that was the first thing. I'm like, who's giving me fentanyl and why am I here?
Yeah.
That was my first thing, and then that's when my arm started to hurt, started to burn, because the burns
Yeah.
on my arm, and one of the nurses in the ambulance was pouring cold water on it, and that was just such a relief.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what was going on. All I knew is that cold water felt good.
Yeah.
Then that's when they started cutting everything off because they didn't know what type of burn it was.
Sure.
They thought it may have been battery acid. They thought it may have been, oil, something.
Right.
So they didn't know. So they cut everything off. I was just in so much pain. And another thing is that I didn't know where my dad was. I didn't know where anybody was. I was in the back of an ambulance with no recollection of what had just happened.
Right.
I didn't know where anybody was. I didn't know what was going on. I was just I just felt like I was put into a situation that I didn't put myself into, or that I just,
Right.
I don't know. And that was kind of the hardest part initially, was I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know who the people were. I didn't know where I was. All I had known is that something had happened, moments before, and now I'm in an ambulance.
Yeah. And at that point, you probably have no idea what, and because the EMTs don't know either, really, what the extent of your injuries are.
Right.
So, that's scary for anybody in that situation. So.
And so in the crash, 6 of the 8 drivers involved went to infield medical, or I should say 5, because I was the 6th. They had originally, infield medical originally thought that I was getting brought there, but they made the decision to just haul me off property immediately.
Right.
So when my dad arrived at the infield medical, he was like, well, where's my kid?
Right.
And they were like, well, we don't know. So after a lot of calls, what had happened was they had lost where I was going. They didn't know what ambulance they put me in.
Right.
So all they knew is that there was an ambulance going off property. They didn't know which one it was. They didn't know what was going on. So eventually the medical director of Road America pulled my dad into, I think he said, like a storage closet, and said, because of HIPAA laws, I can't say this over the radio,
right,
but blah, 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 this is what's going on.
Sure.
So obviously I didn't know that. I had no clue. I was in the back of an ambulance. But I can, my dad definitely said that was a really stressful point.
Sure.
But I got to the local Sheboygan hospital. Pretty immediately they said, we can't care for him. We can't do much. He's in too critical of a state, or
right.
I'm in too critical of a state. So after maybe less than an hour there, they drove me down to Milwaukee.
So you didn't get a free helicopter ride out of this?
They were really close to.
Okay.
They were debating on if I needed to be life flighted or not. I didn't. They went lights and sirens all the way down. Which is
So for those folks who aren't familiar with the geography, Sheboygan to Milwaukee with lights and sirens is probably a good hour and 15, 20 minutes, I'm guessing.
I think we did it in 45 minutes.
Wow.
In the ambulance pinned. My dad in the rental Suburban did it in even less, going about 115 down the freeway, trying to catch the ambulance. So that's a fun story that my dad tells. And I love telling that story too. He was just trying to catch the ambulance, and he was following a Jeep that was going faster than him.
That's odd.
He's going 115.
A random Jeep?
Jeep's going faster.
Was the Jeep part of your entourage, or was it just a random Jeep?
Just a random, right?
Well, welcome to Wisconsin, people.
Welcome to Wisconsin. Yeah, that's all I can gather from that.
Wow.
But I had a great conversation with the EMT and the ambulance on the way to Milwaukee.
Okay.
I was, on a lot of
stuff,
drugs, so that probably influenced that conversation. It ended with, I tried to shake her hand. So I just put my hand out like this, and I said, "Hi, I'm Henry. What's your name?"
Yeah.
So I made a friend, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And then how long were you in Children's Hospital in Milwaukee?
I was there for 6 days.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. I remembered something like that.
The first 2 days, didn't eat anything, couldn't have anything because they were trying to diagnose and properly diagnose the injury.
Right.
I had 2 surgeries to clean the burns.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a really difficult time. That was you're just so helpless.
Yeah.
I couldn't move. I was, you know, it just sucked.
Yeah.
But my dad was there, my sister was there, and my really close friend who lives in Pennsylvania, who had come down and surprised us at Road America. He was there too. And they all did a really good job at, keeping me sane, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
So shout out to them. It was such a weird time, as you could probably imagine.
Oh yeah.
Spending that long in a hospital, and still not knowing what had happened. There was just this chunk of time that I had no recollection for, which was the weirdest part. I just didn't know what had happened.
Right. So did you need any surgeries on the basal skull fracture?
No, and that was one of the deciding parts of when I got out was there was a lot of arguing between all of the different parts of the hospital, deciding if it was stable or not. Eventually, they came to the conclusion that it was stable and that I was good to go.
Yep.
So that was lucky. That was really lucky. Ever since, we've just been, in a neck brace.
Yeah. And was it a plane flight home or did you take a car?
We flew home, which that was probably the worst flight I've ever had.
Sure.
Not because I was in a ton of pain and I was, on a bunch of drugs, but also it was just such a turbulent flight. We had gotten out just before a massive storm had hit the area. It hit Chicago. So we had narrowly avoided it by like minutes. So we flew through some of that turbulence. So that was not great.
That had to have been uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was. It definitely is not one of my favorite flights I've ever taken.
That's why I had thought maybe they would wanted you to go drive cross country, just because you would avoid that potential problem.
Yeah, I think that may have been in consideration, but at the same time, they really wanted me to get home.
Right.
So they just loaded me up with what I needed. And
so did you end up going right to another hospital? You're in the Portland area, right?
Yes. So we didn't go to another hospital. We got discharged from Wisconsin Children's. We drove straight to Chicago, Illinois, or to Chicago and Chicago O'Hare. We flew home and immediately we went home.
Got it. Okay.
Then I think a week later we had we met with the burn care.
Right.
They were really surprised with how well things were progressing when it came to the burns.
That's great.
So I got discharged from that within 2 visits. And so it's really just been managing the neck brace and wanting to get back into a race car. That's been my last 3 months.
Sure. I'm just so impressed with your how you've handled going through this. It's not something that there's different ways to process and go through something like this. It really feels like family, a positive attitude has really served you well through all of this. I don't know if it was a sister or a mom or something who was doing some Facebook posts and checked in with them first to see how you were doing, and then when I saw you were home, I think we reached out pretty week or 2 or 3 later just to say hi and let you know that we were all thinking about you, and then we started talking about doing a podcast, your outcome I think has a lot to do with the attitude and the family support system around you.
Yeah, 100%. And my dad was controlling the race team page for a while, and he was doing daily updates for while I was still in the hospital about up to where I got home. And we were it was so overwhelming with the amount of support I was getting. I had my phone was turned off. I hadn't seen my phone until once we had left. And I had gotten, and once I turned it on, it was, hundreds of messages from people. And this is one of the reasons that I really wanted to come on, was to just publicly thank everybody that reached out, that said that gave us support. It means a lot to me, especially just to a young just to a young kid who wants to go racing as a career. And going through that, it's just the amount of people that reached out. It really makes me feel loved, and it helped the first few weeks back home, getting, just progressing with healing and feeling better. And it's really helped through the summer months, when things were kind of lonely. Obviously, I didn't really get out very much. I was really focused on healing. I was really focused on being, getting back to as strong as I could,
right,
during that time. So the people that stopped by the house, the people that sent messages, the people that sent videos, everybody who reached out, I just say thank you. I don't think I could say thank you enough. And to this point, it's lost its meaning a little bit, but thank you to everybody. It's helped. And some of the people that have reached out, I was really surprised by. There were some really cool people that reached out that I was kind of not expecting. So at the end of the day, the outpour was incredible. Like I said, a little overwhelming responding
Sure.
to everybody. And I kind of got tired of social media for a while. But this has just been such a great opportunity to come on and to say thank you to everybody. And, it's not the last you've seen of me. I'll be back.
Yeah. My last question. You come from a third-generation racing family, so I'm pretty sure I know the answer. But family, when you tell them you want to come back, what is the thought process for the family?
They left the decision in my hands. They said, we never really formally talked about it, I guess, but it's kind of always been understood that it would be my decision, and nobody would blame me if I said, no, I'm not going back racing. I've heard that from some of some of the greatest people that I know. I've heard that from, I've heard that I've cheated death at Road America, and there's not many people who can say that. So I've got to get a bumper sticker. But at the end of the day, it's been my decision, and, having all the time to think about it. I want to get back racing. I want to prove that I still have it. We bought a car. We have all the gear. In fact, we actually have some dates set for some private testing.
Nice.
In the near future. So I'm gonna be back. It's hard. It's been hard. It's been emotionally a roller coaster. I've not looked the greatest. I'm about 3 months without a haircut, so my hair is pretty long. But I'm gonna be back.
Yeah.
That's the last thing. I've been given the opportunity to make this decision on my own and not be influenced by any other figures, which has been probably the greatest thing. It's been the greatest blessing. But I think that I will be back into a car.
Nice. When does the brace come off?
So we have X-rays a week from today. We have X-rays when we finally get to take this off, because to X-ray the bone that is in question, you have to open your mouth and move your neck.
Right.
I can't do that very well right now, so we're waiting for that. I've been told that it'll be a really weird transition. I'm probably going to go to a soft collar for a while, just because of the loss of neck muscles.
Sure.
So I'm not completely out of the woods yet. I still need to be cleared by the neurologist. But we're getting to the end of this journey, and a lot of people say it's a journey, not the destination. For me, it's the destination.
Well, I was just gonna say, not to get philosophical on you. I don't think you're getting to the end of the journey. I think your journey's just beginning. Yeah.
I agree.
There's a lot more that we're going to see out of Henry Tabor, whether it's on the track or off the track. I'm very looking forward to watching what happens next, and I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down today and finally get a chance to do this. And the story is really remarkable. I think it's a testament to safety gear and car design and your will to push through and get it all there, and your family support. And there's just so many spokes to this wheel that they all aligned as perfectly as possible, considering what the first moments were. I'm looking forward to see what the next 10, 15 chapters for Henry Tabor are.
Thank you. Yeah. 2023 has been a crazy chapter. It was going really well till it didn't, but sometimes, the greatest racers need to take some time away from the racetrack, and no matter what the reason is. But I think at the end of the day, this is good. It's given me time to reflect. It's given me time to regroup. It's going to be hard the first time back in a race car, but I'm looking forward to it. And at this point, the sky's the limit. I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful to be alive. I have a new kind of outlook on life after seeing how close it can be. Yeah. There's always a chance that you watch your favorite racer step into the race car for the last time. I just never thought that it would be me stepping into the race car for the last time. So I kind of have this new outlook on how I want my career to go. I think I've lived all of it, how it can go, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. But at the end of the day, this is only the beginning, like you said. So I'm not done. I will be back.
Nice.
That's about all I can say.
Right. All right. So at this point in time, I'm gonna say thank you, and we're gonna wrap this one up, and we're gonna keep in touch as we go forward, and I'll update people as we go, and at some point in time, I'm sure we'll have you back on the show and talk about a lot more racing stuff. So. We will do that. I also want to take an opportunity real quick to thank all of the people that help us do this. Goodyear is our presenting sponsor at the runoffs this year. I want to thank them for jumping on board. Racekeeper is the official in-car camera system of Inside the SCCA. Had a really good time using their stuff here at the Solo Nationals. We'll have a lot more from them as well. And if you want to know more about any of those folks, you can just go down and check out our show notes, and all of that information is there. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the SCCA. If you like what you're hearing or watching, subscribe to the Racingwire Podcast Network or the Racing Network on YouTube. You can follow us on social media to find out who our next guest is and leave questions. On Twitter, it's @RacingWireNet. A new Inside the SCCA comes every Wednesday live at 9 p.m., and then we drop them on Friday mornings at 6 a.m., so you can listen to them on the car to the racetrack. I'm Brian Bielanski. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. Stay safe and go play with cars.
I'm Dorsey Schrader, and when I'm on my way to Embrace, I'll listen to the SCCA podcast, Inside the Short Bus.
Inside the SCCA is a presentation of the Racingwire Podcast Network and Rural 15 Productions. This podcast is not affiliated with, endorsed, or sponsored by the Sports Car Club of America. The views expressed within are those of the host and our guests, and not that of the SCCA.